James, freshly divorced and seeking a fresh start, moved into an old Victorian house at the end of a secluded, overgrown road. The house, shrouded in an almost tangible darkness, stood as a relic of a bygone era. Its price was suspiciously low, but James, eager for isolation, saw it as an opportunity for a new beginning. The first few nights were uneventful as James settled in, unpacking and trying to make the house feel like home. Yet he couldn't shake the eerie feeling of being watched. He dismissed it as nerves, but soon strange things began to happen. It started with noises, the creaking of old floorboards, which he rationalized as the house settling. Then came the whispers, barely perceptible, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. Sometimes they sounded like his name, other times like distant, unintelligible conversations. One night, as he was about to fall asleep, he heard slow, deliberate footsteps in the hallway. His heart pounded as the footsteps stopped outside his bedroom door. Summoning his courage, he opened the door, but the hallway was empty, the air cold enough to see his breath. Shivering, he returned to bed, unable to sleep. Determined to prove it was all in his head, James explored the house during the day. In the basement, he discovered a hidden door behind old crates. Using a key hanging nearby, he opened the door to reveal a small, bare room with an old mirror leaning against the wall. The mirror's frame was intricately carved with strange symbols. As he stood before it, his reflection seemed darker, the shadows moving independently. That night, the whispers grew louder, more insistent, speaking of secrets, blood, and betrayal. James tossed and turned, haunted by dreams of the mirror and the hidden room. He woke in a cold sweat, feeling exhausted. The next day, unable to focus, James felt an inexplicable draw to the mirror. He went back to the basement, stood before the mirror, and studied it. His reflection's eyes seemed filled with a malevolent intelligence. As he reached out to touch the mirror, his hand met his reflection's, and the room around him changed. He was in a grand, decayed ballroom, filled with spectral figures gliding silently to faint, eerie music. Panic surged through him, and he pulled his hand away, shattering the vision. Terrified, James decided to leave the house. He packed a bag, but the front door wouldn't open. The windows were sealed shut. The house seemed determined to keep him inside. The whispers grew louder, becoming an incoherent cacophony of voices. That night, the house came alive. Shadows twisted and writhed on the walls, and the temperature dropped to freezing. James could see his breath forming words. "Join us." The whispers turned to screams, and footsteps rushed towards him from every direction. In a final act of defiance, James ran to the basement and stood before the mirror, where the house's power seemed concentrated. He could see the spectral ballroom behind him, the ghostly figures watching him. Summoning all his courage, he smashed the mirror with a chair. The effect was immediate. The house groaned as if in pain, the walls shuddered, and the temperature began to rise. The whispers ceased, replaced by overwhelming silence. The front door swung open with a creak, and James fled into the night, never looking back. James never spoke of what happened in that house. He sold it as soon as possible, warning the new owners only of the drafty basement. Yet sometimes, late at night, he could still hear the whispers, calling him back to the shadows.
Subscribe to our channel for more interesting horror spooky stories.